Happy New Year, y'all. I asked you to ask me anything. I'm not able to respond to every single comment, but I tried to pick out the questions that were asked most frequently or questions I felt I had a good answer for. Without further ado, let's get started. Even though you say you don't have a favorite driver, do you ever find yourself rooting for a driver more than others? I have not had a favorite driver since Matt Kenseth retired. I have become decent friends with Brennan Poole. We've done a podcast together for a couple of years now, so I definitely find myself rooting for him on Saturdays. But otherwise, I mean it. I don't root for any one particular driver. I root for the best storyline and whoever I picked to win that week, so I look smart. Will Kyle Busch win in 2025? I think he will. He came close a couple of times in 2024, and I don't think Richard Childress Racing will be worse in 2025. Well, I say that, but with teams like Spire and Front Row on the up and up, 2311, RFK, Trackhouse adding third full-time cars, yeah, it may get worse before it gets better for RCR. I guess we'll have to wait and see. I'm used to seeing RCR contend for a playoff spot. If they give Kyle Busch playoff contending equipment, chances are he will win a race next season. But I guess that equipment is not guaranteed. I'll say he will, but I'm not confident. In my opinion, I think the whole one winner-take-all championship race has done more damage to the championship legitimacy than even the win and you're in. Do you agree? I would generally agree, although I'm not really a fan of either. I do think Joey Logano's championship would have been more palatable to fans if he had had to defend his points lead for 2 more races after Phoenix. I know there are a bunch of races, of course, to determine who makes the championship for, but even those 4, I think, need to race it out over at least a 3-race stretch. Then the championship will feel at least more legitimate to most fans watching at home. What is a bold 2025-26 silly season prediction you have? Oh, I have not given this any real thought. I want to say Kyle Busch leaves RCR. He is in a contract year, but I just said Kyle Busch will probably win a race. I could say Daniel Suarez. He signed a 1-year extension with Trackhouse and struggled for much of last season, but I like Daniel. I want that to work. I'll go back to RCR. I think Austin Dillon, despite signing an extension recently, will retire at year's end, at least from full-time racing. Sorry, Austin Dillon fans, but 2023 and 2024 have been the worst 2 seasons of his Cup Series career. RCR is at a crossroads. I think there will be pressure on Austin Dillon to move upstairs. They've got legit drivers in Xfinity like Austin Hill, Jesse Love. That's my way too early, bold, silly season prediction. Austin Dillon steps out of the 3-car full-time at the end of 2025. Which silly season mover do you think will perform the best next season? Example, Briscoe in the 19, now with Joe Gibbs equipment. Yeah, probably Chase Briscoe. Good young driver getting into a good car. Depending on how he clicks with crew chief James Small, they could be great together. But that's not a sure thing. There are other good combinations. Shane Van Gisbergen, full-time with Trackhouse. He could easily win one of the road course races. Same could be said about AJ Allmendinger returning to Colleague full-time. Michael McDowell moving to Spire. That could be a dangerous duo. Riley Herbst to 2311. We'll see. Ryan Preece, RFK. The 6 and 17 each won a race last year. Could the 60 find victory lane? The Wood brothers should be a little better next season, I think. Who am I missing? Justin Haley? Who else? I think Chase Briscoe with Gibbs is the safest pick. Likely will make the playoffs. I think we'll win a race. Could make a deep run. Yeah, I'd probably pick Chase Briscoe. Now, not all of your questions were strictly racing focused. Let's mix in some fun ones. Has anyone ever been taller than you in the NASCAR garage? Yes, those of you who've seen me in person know that I typically stick out when I'm standing in a crowd. I'm 6'7" tall. Michael Jordan is 6'6", I believe. The only person I've seen in the garage obviously taller than me is Brad Daugherty, who I think is 6'11". He might even be 7 feet. Another former NBA player. He's the only one I've seen. If there's anyone else, come find me at Daytona. Let's settle this once and for all. Have you ever had a least favorite driver? Yes. Do you have a favorite driver, crew chief? Okay, you probably want to know who my least favorite driver was. It was Tony Stewart, circa 2006. Never liked the guy. Tremendous talent. I always, and still do, very much respect what Tony Stewart is capable of on the racetrack, behind the wheel of pretty much anything that moves. But as a kid, I did not like his personality. Too hot-headed for my taste. Was not a Tony Stewart fan for many years there. Favorite driver, crew chief, team owner that you've gotten to either interview or had a conversation with? I got to interview Matt Kenseth on the show in 2020. That's still one of my top career highlights. I did a short segment last year with Kyle Petty that I really enjoyed. Like him or not, he's bold, he's opinionated, he knows his stuff, he's been around, and he's very articulate. He's been on TV, he's used to being behind a microphone on camera. I really enjoyed our interview conversation / recording session. Oh, and Kenny Wallace is another one. He was very kind to invite me on his YouTube show last year. Really nice guy. Enjoyed that chat. There are others, I'm sure, but those are just a few that y'all would recognize that immediately pop into my mind. What was your favorite non-racing memory of this year? Getting engaged. Is Matt Kenseth coming to the wedding? He hasn't RSVP'd, but if any of y'all can get me in touch with him, the invite is still open. What are your thoughts on the Double E Cup Series now that it's been a few years since it was active? It's honestly crazy the number of people who still come up to me and say, hey, your stop motion videos, that's what got me into NASCAR. Those were my childhood. Like, that is such a surreal, positive feeling. For those who don't know, some of my earliest YouTube content were NASCAR stop motion animated videos using 1/64th scale die-cast cars, would make my own races, turn it into my own ongoing recurring series. People cheered on their favorite drivers. It was a good time. Worked on those as a teenager, and it has been, gosh, it's been many years now. I don't think I've done a Dex stop motion series in at least 5 or 6 years. I remember at the time I was kind of embarrassed to tell friends and family like what I was doing outside of, high school hours. I think the whole, he's just playing with toy cars narrative stuck with me more than it should have. But looking back now, it was a good time. It was fun. And honestly, I'm extremely thankful for those videos and that series. I likely would not have the platform I have today without those videos. I've gotten to a point now where I can look back at that series and appreciate it for what it was. In the moment, it was tedious, repetitive. I'd lock myself in a room by myself for hours. It wasn't exactly cool at the time, but looking back now, I'd say it was pretty cool. I had a blast, and I'm glad so many people enjoyed watching them as well. What NASCAR things do you listen to and watch frequently, and how often do you? I read, listen to, watch a lot. I read anything The Athletic writers put out, Sports Business Journal, anything Matt Weaver, Bob Pockris write, Dustin Long. I listen to all the big podcasts, Action's Detrimental. I listen to The Teardown, DBC most of the time. I'll listen to Stacking Pennies when there's a good interview. I like The Money Lap with Kligerman and Landon Castle. On YouTube, of course, I'll watch anything Slapshoes puts out. Ellie Productions, his editing skills are incredible. My friend The Iceberg, of course, always has a unique perspective. Kenny Wallace, again, does some good interviews. I consume a lot of content. Some of it is, I'm not at the track every week. I go to about 12 races a year. So for the races I'm not there, I feel the need to read, listen to as much content as I can to try and fill in the gaps, things I may not have learned because I wasn't there. For my job, I need to be as informed as possible. But then I also love listening and reading comments, social media threads to know what fans are interested in, because that will drive topics on the show. So long story short, I consume quite a bit of NASCAR content, especially during the season. What does a day in the life of a NASCAR content creator look like? During the season, I get into a pretty good routine. I walk the dog, enjoy a cup of coffee, then I start researching, writing, plotting out that day's episode. I'll listen to any podcasts or interviews I may have missed. I'll be doing stats research on Racing Reference. Then around lunchtime, usually I sit down to record like I'm doing now. Typically takes 30 minutes. Then I sit at my computer just off screen, edit that down to the 10 or 15 minutes you usually see, post the video, and then the rest of my my afternoon is usually spent preparing for the next day's episode, or doing chores around the house, working on larger projects that take longer to produce. I used to work at all sorts of weird hours during the day and night. Nowadays, I try to keep my evenings free. I've tried to strike a better work-life balance than I've had in the past. Keyword is try. I don't always succeed, but I'm trying. Show us around your studio. Also, what do you use for editing, etc.? A studio tour is not a bad idea. Although I have a lot of things here, especially some things just off camera that I'd love to show you guys. It might take some time. Maybe that will be a separate video. But as far as some of the equipment I use, I'm filming this right now on a Panasonic Lumix GH5 I've had for about 3 years. Microphone I've got here is a Blue Yeti X, likely due for an upgrade. I edit everything in Adobe Premiere. Hopefully that answers your question. Why don't you do any race recaps for the Xfinity and Truck Series? Again, during the season, I don't really take days off. I'm posting episodes Monday through Friday, usually. Obviously, my Sunday afternoons and evenings are booked. I try to keep my Saturdays open. Obviously, I'm still watching the Xfinity and maybe the Truck Series race, but I at least want to keep my nights free. I still will post the occasional Xfinity or truck reaction if something insane happens. But if I'm being completely honest, Truck and Xfinity Series videos do not pull in the viewership that Cup Series videos do. That's just the facts. It's just not worth it usually to put in that work on my one free night a week, so I usually keep my Saturday nights open. If you didn't become a YouTuber, what would you do? That is a great question. I have a degree in TV and film from the University of Texas. My final semester of college, I was interning at a small production company in Los Angeles. So I guess if I hadn't tried doing this full time, maybe I would have continued to work out there. That wasn't super appealing to me. The pandemic hit, which sort of forced my hand. I enjoy creating things. I've always enjoyed working with cameras, editing together content, so I'd probably still be doing something in that realm. But what specifically? Who's to say? What team, if any, will stand out like RFK and Trackhouse? If you're asking me who the breakout team of 2025 is going to be, Spire Motorsports is one to keep an eye on, but I'm watching Front Row Motorsports. Todd Gilliland took a huge leap in 2024. He's back in 2025, has a good crew chief, I think, with Chris Lawson rejoining the team. They've added Noah Gragson, who just a couple years ago was tearing up the Xfinity Series. All reports indicate Zane Smith will get that third seat. He figured it out the second half of last season. Keep in mind, Front Row has strengthened their relationship with Ford. They have a technical alliance with Team Penske. Front Row Motorsports is going to be a serious playoff contender this year. Would not surprise me if one or two or all three of their cars are contending for one of those final spots late in the summer. Hi, Eric. Would you rather have the JGR roster for the next 4 years or the Hendrick roster? Ooh, so basically you're asking me, hypothetical team owner Eric, if I'd rather have Hamlin, Bell, Briscoe, and Ty Gibbs for 4 years? Or would I rather have Chase Elliott, Kyle Larson, Alex Bowman, and William Byron? That's tough. I think I'll take the Hendrick lineup though, because all 4 of those drivers are either in or are about to enter their prime years and will be in their prime throughout all 4 of those seasons you're talking about. I think is Larson the oldest driver at Hendrick? And what is he, 31, 32? Meanwhile, with Gibbs, Denny Hamlin may only have a couple prime years left. And Ty Gibbs, I think, is still at least a couple years away from entering his prime. So for the next 4 years, give me Hendrick. That is a really solid driver lineup. Everyone is in their prime. On current form, who do you think will be the next Cup Series driver to become a multi-time champion, whether they already have one or not? Another good question. So let's see. Chase Elliott, Kyle Larson, Ryan Blaney, Brad Keselowski are active drivers with 1 championship. Is there anyone I'm missing? I'm not sure. Of that group, I think Kyle Larson is due to win a second one. He is the most consistently fast driver and car of that group. Ryan Blaney's a sneaky pick, though, especially if the format doesn't change. If Phoenix remains the finale, Team Penske has figured it out. So I would say Larson. He wins a lot, but Blaney is not a bad second choice. Who is a driver that you thought would be a star, but ended up being a bust? Man, unfortunately, the first name that comes to mind is Hailie Deegan. Let me be clear, you can check the tape. I never projected Hailie Deegan to become a Cup Series champion, someone who consistently contends for wins. I wasn't expecting that. But 4 or 5 years ago, there was tremendous momentum behind her. She was winning those K&N West races. I thought there was a very good chance she would make it to the Cup Series at the very least. But of course, we saw some warning signs in ARCA and then trucks. Say what you will, she never improved statistically across 3 full seasons. Xfinity did not go the way she hoped. If you had told me even 3 years ago that Hailie Deegan would have lost her NASCAR ride and would now be in the Indy Lights Series, that's what I still call it, racing open wheel cars, I would have called you crazy, but lo and behold, here we are. So I guess she qualifies. What type of music do you listen to? Mostly rock and its many different subgenres and decades. Honestly, let me see. I think I screenshotted my Spotify Wrapped for this year. Yeah, I went through kind of a nostalgic pop punk phase over the summer. So you got Blink-182, All American Rejects. I saw them live this summer. That was fun. Then the Beach Boys and Elvis. So I guess the 60s were in. And then Ghost, if y'all have been watching a long time. Hey, we helped get Ghost on a NASCAR stock car. Gothic, metal, modern arena rock, what's not to love? Yeah, those are some of my favorites. That Spotify Wrapped is fairly accurate, I'd say. Do you still play your electric bass? Not as much as I did during the pandemic year. That was like the thing I decided I'm going to learn how to play bass guitar while in quarantine. I got okay at it, I think. My guitar is currently at my parents' house, so I haven't played it as much, although I did play it some over Christmas break when I was visiting. So yeah, still love it. Just need to get back in the groove. No pun intended. If you were granted an extraordinary opportunity to travel back in time to watch one race you did not attend in person but would blissfully enjoy watching, which race would you wish to attend and why? Man, I would have had a blast watching Matt Kenseth lead 400 out of 500 laps in the Bristol Night Race in 05 or the 2012 Daytona 500, although that race, sitting through the rain and the fire, would have been tedious. Maybe the first Daytona 500, right? 1959, that was the one where it took them 3 days to confirm Lee Petty won, like one of the truly original, authentic photo finishes. That would be cool to say you're at the first Daytona 500. Oh, speaking of Daytona, 2001 Pepsi 400. First trip back to Daytona after Dale Earnhardt's passing. To be in that crowd when Dale Earnhardt Jr. took the checkered flag in dramatic fashion. Man, that was kind of a healing moment in many ways for the sport. I can only imagine the impact it would have had seeing it in person. So I'd probably say that, 2001 Pepsi 400. What NASCAR race or incident has made you the most angry? I thought about this one for a bit. 2016 Phoenix, back when it was the final race of the round of 8, Matt Kenseth cruising to a championship 4 spot, caution comes out, restart, and he gets cleared low too early, spins out, crashes, eliminated. Oh, I was watching that race in my college dorm at the time, and I was steaming. I went on a super long walk. I literally had to walk it off. I was stewing. Still not over that one. Ugh. Hi, Eric. Big fan of the show. I was wondering, what is your favorite piece of NASCAR merchandise that you have? Man, I don't know. When you say merchandise, I picture something I bought. I don't know what that would be. I'd have to think about it. But I think my favorite piece of anything NASCAR that I own is probably Brennan Poole's fire suit that he gave me after he raced the Out of the Groove car at Phoenix 2 years ago. I still can't believe that happened. So it's fun to look at that awesome fire suit and be reminded of how special that whole experience was. Has your time on iRacing given you any new insight on the sport or made you appreciate any certain aspects of driving? Yes, I would say absolutely, especially the focus it takes to hit your marks consistently, lap after lap, especially over the course of a long green flag run that may last an hour, multiple hours. I knew that driving a race car is physical, the forces you experience. I knew that it took great focus. I guess I just didn't realize how locked in you have to be great, to be so consistent until I tried doing it myself in the virtual world, and I still struggle with it. Have you ever been approached to do work in television? I have not. I would probably be extremely awkward, but I'd love to give it a try, honestly. Like, who wouldn't? I don't think I'd ever want to do TV full time. I really enjoy doing this show in its current format, so it'd be fun to do a segment or to do something on TV, but not at the expense of Out of the Groove in its current form. What really happened with Thad Moffitt and the 46 truck team? Was that just one of those get-rich-quick NASCAR team sponsor scams? I legitimately don't know all of the details, but I'll try to shed as much light as I can. People I've worked with for a long time teamed up with Lane Moore, who I think I had on the show at one point. He owned some grocery stores in Oklahoma, I believe, wanted to get into NASCAR. Through mutual connections, they linked up with Nice Motorsports and then the Petties. Thad, of course, looking to gain experience. They brought some funding. Boom. And then I came in because I thought I would have the opportunity to be really hands-on with this team and hopefully film some behind-the-scenes content. But that didn't really materialize, and a few months into the season, the relationship between Faction 46 and Nice was questionable. I started to distance myself from the team a bit at this point because I really wasn't able to film what I was hoping I was going to be able to film, and the team was obviously struggling. I saw Lane in the garage well after Faction 46, disbanded or was, I guess, absorbed by Nice Motorsports, I think. I'm not sure how his relationship with the Petties dissolved. I'm honestly not sure what his relationship is with Nice now. After March or April, it all kind of became murky because it was clear the opportunity was not as great as I thought it was going to be when the project, I guess, was first pitched to me. So disappointing. I guess what I learned throughout this whole process is that it's very difficult to build a NASCAR team from scratch when you don't have deep existing industry connections. A while back, you said you were a bit of a roller coaster enthusiast. I'm a roller coaster enthusiast as well, and I want to know what your top 10 list looks like, as well as what your favorite roller coaster manufacturer is if you have one. Yeah, I'll be honest, I'm more of a broader theme park guy than strictly roller coasters, but I actually do have a top 10 list I keep on my phone. I actually have a list of my top 36 roller coasters I've ridden. A lot of the ones at the top, again, I go for theming. Guardians of the Galaxy, Cosmic Rewind at Epcot. I love Hagrid's Motorbike Adventure Velocicoaster at Universal Orlando. Outstanding. But I do have Lightning Rod and Thunderhead from Dollywood in my top 10. I've got Superman Krypton Coaster from Six Flags San Antonio, Fiesta, Texas. I also have the Iron Rattler in there. Love going to that park as a kid. What else do I have? I have the Voyage Holiday World, massive wooden roller coaster. What are your thoughts on the Kyle Tucker trade and Alex Bregman leaving? It's painful, but it's the cost of doing business. The Astros won 2 World Series, went to 4 World Series in a short period of time, but they decimated their farm system and handed out some bad veteran contracts in the process. Kyle Tucker was going to land a huge contract next year, so I'm honestly glad we were able to get a good prospect and a solid position player in return. Alex Bregman is awesome, man. Fan favorite, but he wants all-star money when he hasn't played consistently like an all-star in 4 or 5 years. The Astros signing Christian Walker, sorry Diamondbacks fans, gives me hope that this team will still be a serious playoff threat in 2025, and because of the Tucker trade, I think we're in a slightly better position heading into 2026 and beyond. So I am cautiously optimistic as a spoiled Astros fan the past nearly decade. Can you do another live NASCAR stop motion watch along? I got a lot of questions like this actually, and I'm a bit surprised. I'm glad so many of you have enjoyed the previous stop motion reaction videos I've done. It's been a while. If I do another one, I'd like to first get permission from the creators that I'd be watching first. The goal of these videos is to share great stop motion creators with the world, hopefully build up their audience. I'd want to make sure people are cool with the way I be doing it. So it might take some work, might take a lot of preparation, but I'll definitely consider it. I'll put it in the memory bank, and maybe sometime in the not so distant future, we'll run it back and react to the latest and greatest stop motion creations on the internet. Finally, what is your favorite video you've made? Oh man, I can think of a few favorites, but for different reasons. Like a couple of years ago, I was honored to be invited to the Georgia Racing Hall of Fame filmed an exclusive interview with Bill Elliott, David Sosby, talk all about Georgia racing history, the roots of stock car racing. That was incredible. Really excited I got to film that and share that with everybody at home. I would say the first downhill diecast race I did in 2020, maybe it was early 2021, my dad and I spent hours building that track, that set, Groovy Gulch. I was inspired by the channel 3D Botmaker and wanted to put a NASCAR spin on things, and I was really excited with how those first videos came out, considering this was the first time we'd ever tried something like that. So that video is up there. And then I think I have to mention the most viewed video on my channel, Dex Season 5 Race to Texas. I don't know why this video exploded 10 million views and counting, but I think it's so special that it's Texas, my home track, and it just so happens to be one of the races that Matt Kenseth won. What are the odds? But very special video. Amazing that it's been shared so many times over the years. Those are probably my top 3 that immediately come to mind. It's hard to remember every individual episode of Out of the Groove. I love doing my post-race reactions. I have my notes, I do some prep, but really those are me in the moment just reacting to whatever madness we just saw. It's hard for me to pick a specific one of those that I love, but I love doing those, broadly speaking. So I guess that's it. That is the final question I'm going to answer. I've been sitting here recording, a little inside baseball here. 59 minutes. I don't know what the final video will turn out to be, but we sat here for a long time. Took me a long time to think of answers for some of these questions. Y'all left some good ones. Really appreciate it. Thank you so much for watching. Again, Happy New Year, everyone. Here's to an extra special, extra exciting 2025 that's right around the corner. I'll see y'all again soon.